September 4th, 2015, Boise, Idaho. A pedestrian is walking on a crisp gray day when they notice something alarming overhead and record this. A large pterodactyl-like creature with a massive wingspan glides overhead. The wings pull back, then flap several times before the animal soars out of view. Let's watch that again. There's a notable triangle-shaped face leading to a point on the back of the skull. And beyond the massive wings, there appear to be two legs. We can clearly see the brownish skin as the creature dives, then glides past the trees. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt is excited to see such footage.
So this clip is really near and dear to my heart because for decades I have been actively researching accounts of living pterosaurs or pterodactyls. I've interviewed dozens of people that swear that they've seen these giant flying reptiles, not birds.
The pterosaurs, who supposedly went extinct 65 million years ago, were neither bird nor dinosaur.
70 million years before birds came on the scene, the first flying vertebrates were the pterosaurs. And they were a highly specialized form of flying reptiles. They evolved into these massive pterodactyls with wingspans up to 36 feet long, making them the largest flying animals ever.
Pterosaur fossils have been found on every continent, including Antarctica. But how the heck could one be flying around Idaho today? Gerhardt is reminded of another sighting, one that became famous in the days of the Wild West.
There's a famous story from 1890. Cowboys riding in the Whetstone Mountains sighted this giant creature. They'd supposedly shoot this thing with their rifles and kill it. And they brought it back to town. There was a photograph which appeared in the Tombstone, Arizona Epitaph newspaper. And this photograph purportedly shows something that looks exactly like this animal. What's really strange, though, is that the photograph seems to have disappeared.
While hundreds of people claim to remember seeing this photo, there's still no physical evidence of it to this day. However, a number of strange photos featuring cowboys and winged creatures have surfaced over the years, although most, like this one, were easily proven fake.
If the famous Tombstone photograph does exist, it actually does prove that these animals did survive into modern times.
Gerhardt points to another possible theory, not from the Old West, but from a dystopian future.
There are some people that have actually tried to construct drones that have a very organic appearance, resembling birds or other animals. In fact, technicians at New Mexico State University have been actively working to build what's called an ornithopter, which is essentially a mechanical flying device which utilizes wings like birds and pterosaurs and other animals.
These ornithopters are using actual bird carcasses for the casings of their machines as a way to blend in and monitor wildlife. Could we be looking at similar tech?
I think we can't discount the possibility that this is in fact a modified and actually a very cool-looking drone.
Idaho isn't the only place where sightings like this have been reported. In a prior season, we investigated a supposed raptor running around Florida, and a living pterosaur has allegedly been seen flying above Papua New Guinea and its surrounding islands. As for this Idaho footage, let's let our experts swoop in and do their thing. Wildlife biologist Stephanie Manka is skeptical that what we're seeing here is a 65-million-year-old creature.
If a creature this large were able to survive, it would need prey to survive on, like cows or calves, sheep or goats. Because it would need to hunt for food across a large area, it would most likely be seen by humans before this one video.
Manka also suggests that some of these creatures' movements are anything but organic.
So here it looks like this pterosaur is going to dive down, but then it lifts its head back again without really being able to recover. It would need more distance from the ground to go back up again. They're not able to defy gravity, and it definitely makes me question if this is real.
So could this be a taxidermied drone, like the ones being created at New Mexico State University?
The idea of using real birds as drones is enthralling, but although birds do have a hinge right here, their wings don't bend upwards like that. That would be like me being able to bend my elbow backwards. This is not anatomically correct. This isn't a drone in a taxidermied bird.
Our next stop was to see what video forensic analyst Michael Primo could tell us about this aerial enigma.
A software program created this file, not a digital video camera. This video definitely appears to be processed. There's no direct source of light that in theory would produce these tonal values underneath the wings. So that would be more of an indication that something was changed on the underside of those wings.
Although Primo thinks this is a fake, even he has to admit it's a pretty impressive one.
The metadata and structural analysis doesn't give us any kind of indication as to what program may have done this or how it was done. This could very well be one of the best CGI videos that I have ever analyzed.
Our verdict, based on Manka's observations and Primo's video analysis, we're calling this a hoax. But be warned, now that AI has entered the field of photo manipulation, generating fakes like this will soon be as easy as typing a sentence. We'll do our best to stay one step ahead of the charlatans. April 2021. Christina Ryan is asleep in her home in Palm Beach, Florida. But while her eyes are shut, her home security camera is wide awake, and it captures this wild footage. The video, just 4 seconds long, shows an animal running across the front yard in the dead of night. Let's slow it down and take another look. It's hard to tell exactly what this is, but there is no doubt in Christina's mind about what her camera recorded.
My immediate thought is it's a raptor or some type of a dinosaur, the way that it's running, and just the entire shape and everything indicated to me dinosaur.
Field researcher Ken Gerhardt agrees. The blurry but extremely intriguing clip screams velociraptor to him too.
It appears to have a kind of a long and powerful, sturdy tail. This is kind of the classic image of a small bipedal theropod type of dinosaur.
As crazy as it may seem, Gerhardt shares that there are many modern-day accounts of living dinosaurs, just like Christina Ryan's, right here in the US of A.
In southwest Colorado, there have been many sightings, and they're referred to as river dinosaurs or river lizards. These are basically smaller types of theropod-like dinosaurs, just like we're seeing in the Florida video.
There are also traditions in southwest Texas of tall bipedal lizards called mountain boomers, larger versions of a known smaller species. These sightings are fleeting, but they do happen. So is it that crazy to think that other dinosaur species could be alive and well in Florida? Let's ask our experts.
Because it's moving at a high rate of speed and the encoder is not set to capture that information with a high quality, it's essentially blurring and elongating some of that with motion, trail, compression artifacting. The pixel information that was captured was not captured with accuracy.
So Primo says the footage hasn't been altered, but it still may be distorted in the camera. The tail of this creature may not be what it seems. So we brought in our resident zoologist, Roxy Furman, who reminds us where this happened and why that may be a clue.
Florida is famous for its exotic pet trade, and also they obviously have gators in the region. The way it moves could be reptile-like. It moves kind of side to side in this waddle-like manner, but its body pattern has no indication of scales or any different coloration or variation along the back. So for me, that kind of rules out any kind of reptile.
That would eliminate giant prehistoric reptiles like raptors too. So if it isn't a dinosaur, then what is it?
What I think is most likely is a dog that's got loose. You can see the tail running behind it.
The tail looks like a lizard's due to the picture distortion Primo identified.
And it also looks like there's something kind of dragging, like a leash. And that would also explain kind of this white area that we see around the head, which would most likely be a reflective collar. And it's just kind of running through someone's garden.
So, our verdict. This is just a dog on the loose, not a runaway raptor. But again, thanks to Florida's laid-back exotic pet regulations, gigantic lizards have gotten free in the Sunshine State. It's 1980 by the Paluxy River near Glen Rose, Texas. Amateur paleontologist Glenn Cuban is on a mission to document a site that became famous since it was first discovered in 1908. This is why. Take a closer look. These are two trails of fossilized footprints that cross each other in the riverbank. But while one set of prints belongs to a dinosaur, Glenn says some believe the others are human.
They didn't find any distinct human toes, but we did find these oblong tracks in striding sequences that were larger than normal human feet, but were not obviously typical dinosaur tracks, and they roughly resemble human tracks.
Wait a minute, humans and dinosaurs side by side? Author Eric Grundhauser says according to believers of the young Earth theory, the answer is yes.
They believe in a biblical foundation that the Earth was only created between 4,000 and 10,000 years ago. Now, many people who have observed this site have taken this as evidence that humans and dinosaurs actually lived at the same time. And in a very literal sense, they crossed paths.
Young Earthers or creationists also point to depictions in other cultures around the world that supposedly confirm their beliefs, like this prehistoric cave drawing in Kutaisi, Georgia, that supposedly shows men hunting next to a dinosaur. But take a look at the size of these prints. They are huge.
They are much, much larger than any recorded human that we know of. Could they point to a lost species of human, a giant?
The mystery is complicated by this other set of prints found nearby. They seem to have normal human shape and size, don't they? How did those get here? In 2020, evidence of stone tools found in Mexico led anthropologists to theorize that the first humans may have come to North America 30,000 years ago, almost 20,000 years earlier than previously thought. So our natural history is continuously changing when new facts come to light. But what are the facts when it comes to these alleged human footprints? We let our experts dip their feet in for answers. Archaeologist Ed Barnhart says these prints aren't just too big to be human, they're size 35. And even if there were giant humans in our ancient history, they didn't make these prints.
Humans have an arch and toes, and we have a heel. When you really look at this footprint in the way that a scientific investigation does, it lacks those basic elements.
Humans have 5 metatarsal foot bones that connect to their toes. On the other hand, the reptile foot has 3 metatarsal foot bones, characteristically splayed out from the base. So these are the footprints of a reptile. And NASA geologist Dr. Bob Anderson thinks he knows what made these mysterious fossilized impressions.
What we have here is an ancient stream channel where multiple dinosaurs have walked through.
But if both sets of tracks are dinosaurs, why does one look so human?
It's just the way the dinosaur itself was walking across the ground.
Anderson says it's likely one of the dinosaurs was walking with its weight on the back of its feet, so the toes didn't have much contact with the mud. That's why it's less clear the feet only had 3 toes. And in some cases, erosion wore away the toe imprints even further, making the track look almost like it was made by a person wearing a shoe. That still leaves these other photos of prints from nearby, where the human toe, arch, and heel markings are clearly delineated. What about them?
There have been people who have an agenda supporting the idea of creationism and carved the tracks to look like human tracks.
Turns out Barnhart's right. Research reveals that most of the fake prints were carved by a man named George Adams in the 1930s, as his family later acknowledged. Adams decided to create better examples of the alleged giant human tracks in order to sell tickets to tourists during the Great Depression. The verdict? None of these are prehistoric human tracks. Our experts have laid out explanations for all 3 types of phenomena seen in Glenn's photos: dinosaur metatarsal tracks, erosion, and intentional carvings. There's no evidence that humans ever walked with dinosaurs. So keep enjoying the Flintstones, just take them with a grain of salt. June 2020, Wolf Island, Georgia. News breaks that a man named Jeff Warren has come across something extraordinary on the beach. Fortunately, he had his phone to record it. Take a good look. The video shows what looks like an odd, washed-up carcass. There appear to be some entrails nearby, as if something took a bite out of it. To the rear, there was a long tail, maybe to help propulsion in the water. On the left side, we see what appears to be a flipper, and most interesting, what looks like a long, slender neck with a small reptilian head. So what is it? Cliff Barrickman has an idea.
The shape of it suggests a plesiosaur of some sort.
A plesiosaur is an ancient reptile that lived during the time of the dinosaurs. And for field researcher Ken Gerhardt, that is particularly exciting.
In and around the town of Darien, Georgia, in the Altamaha River, there have been accounts of a mysterious monster known as the Altamaha. It's typically described as a plesiosaurian type of animal. And like this creature, it fits well into the paradigm of other lake monsters and sea serpents around the world, similar to the Loch Ness Monster, Canada's Ogopogo, the Lake Champlain Monster in upstate New York, and so on.
The video hits the local news and soon goes viral, with many people claiming it must be the sea creature affectionately known as Alti to local Georgians. The legendary creature Altamaha is said to have a small head, a long neck and tail, and flippers. That all seems to track. Could this video be proof that the ancient legend is real? Let's check with our experts. First off, marine biologist Dr. Shay Conger says that despite its similarities to Altamaha, this creature bears resemblance to something more recognizable.
It's almost an exact replica of the cartilage of a basking shark. And these are often washed up on beaches and mistaken for sea monsters.
Growing up to 50 feet long, basking sharks are the second largest shark on Earth. When these giants decompose, they tend to first lose their lower head area, along with their dorsal and caudal fins. The result is a carcass that is easy to mistake for a plesiosaur or sea monster. However, Conger says this carcass doesn't quite add up.
If this were the cartilage structure of a basking shark, I would expect that it would be a lot rougher, it would be kind of whitish in color.
And in fact, when Dr. Conger examines the creature's state of decomposition, she doesn't see a marine animal at all. She smells a rat.
If this were an animal that was found on the beach, we would expect it to be somewhat decomposed. Instead, this animal is not decomposed at all, even though it appears to have some scratch marks around it. But there's also what appear to be entrails in front of it, and that's really not typical of the natural decomposition process. Based on the fact that it appears to be completely intact and not decomposed, I would conclude that this is a hoaxed or manufactured object.
We attempted to contact Jeff Warren, who filmed the video, but it turns out that was a made-up name, and he disappeared after sending the video to news agencies. So did the carcass. So we did some further investigating ourselves and found that this Altamaha was actually a sculpture created by an artist who goes by the name Zardulu.
Appearance becomes meaningless in our presumption of truth.
Zardulu creates anonymous viral videos. You may be familiar with her earlier masterpieces, Pizza Rat and Raccoon Riding an Alligator. So the verdict here is clear. This is an artistically created hoax. We asked Zardulu for an interview. Unsurprisingly, she declined. She did direct us to her manifesto, which declares that she creates work for the world to enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it too.